Progressives are going after Ocasio Cortez for not standing up to Nancy Pelosi, and AOC's one of her primary challengers is tearing her apart for hanging out at her luxury DC apartment with her infinity pool while the rest of her constituents are in the coronavirus hotspot. Apparently, Ocasio Cortez did a live forum for her constituents from Washington, D.C. I believe it was in D.C., but the general area, where she's in a very nice luxury apartment and not in the Bronx where, New York City, where her constituents are suffering a major lockdown and this terrifying moment. It was actually AOC's opponent who called this out. Let's read the story. And then I got a tweet for you from Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is awesome, by the way. AOC is blasted by opponent Michelle Caruso Cabrera for holding a coronavirus video forum from the safety of her luxury DC home. They say Caruso Cabrera branded AOC out of touch for holding herself up in her plush apartment, complete with infinity pool and golf simulator in the Capitol, while her constituents in the Bronx and Queens find themselves at the heart of the coronavirus pandemic. Quote, while Queens and the Bronx have lines down the block at hospitals and grocery stores, AOC is holed up in a brand new luxury apartment where she shops at Whole Foods in her lobby, Caruso Cabrera said. That's shameful. No wonder voters think that she is out of touch. She has a golf simulator, an infinity pool, and Peloton cycle room, as well as other luxuries, while families in the Bronx and Queens are worried about how long the lines are at the grocery store and where they are going to get their next paycheck. AOC isn't even here to see their desperation and their struggle to survive with her own eyes. So apparently in this photo, we can see it says Ocasio Cortez has been blasted. I guess the comment here is they're pointing to this vent to prove she's in one of these like industrial style, DC apartments. Here's the why is AOC in her brand new DC luxury apartment during the COVID-19 crisis when people of the Bronx and Queens are losing their lives and jobs? They report AOC is the representative of Queens and the Bronx, some of the hardest hit areas of New York City. New York has been ravaged by the outbreak, with 23 people dying every hour across the state between Thursday and Friday. The coronavirus death toll has rocketed to 2,935. Actually, it's much, much higher than that in the United States. Are they talking about New York? They say of which 1,867 are in New York City. The Bronx and Queens neighborhoods have been some of the hardest hit. Michelle Caruso Cabrera branded AOC out of touch. Apparently, this is a photo of her. I guess she was doing a stream or something. But according to her nemesis, AOC is nowhere to be seen in the areas that she is tasked with residing over. Ocasio Cortez held a virtual Facebook forum with her constituents Wednesday with the group Make the Road NY on the topic of COVID-19 and the stimulus. In the forum, the representative whose district office is in Jackson Heights and who has an apartment in the Bronx answered questions from constituents. She told how she was coping. She told how she was coping amid the mounting crisis. Everyone responds to stress differently. I feel like I've changed my pace a lot, she said. Here's a photo of a man in the Bronx. Here are people waiting outside in the Bronx Friday. Ambulance being lined up. She said, since I represent Queens and the Bronx, which are some of the hardest hit communities right now, I kind of recognize that there are some days where I'm going to be working all day, 12 hours or more. But there are some days where I just have to accept that I'm not going to be as productive on a certain day. Michelle Caruso Cabrera, who has been touted as AOC's Democratic primary opponent, one of many, by the way, slammed AOC, saying the background of the room matched the design of the apartment complex in the fashionable DC Navy Yard neighborhood where she has a home. The former veteran CNBC anchor also pointed out that AOC had criticized her own predecessor for a similar move in the past. AOC said former Congressman Joe Crowley could not represent the area because he was spending more time in Virginia than in the district. Now, in the past, AOC has absolutely been criticized by local residents who say she's never around, she's just in D.C., and she doesn't really pay much attention to her district. In my opinion, Ocasio Cortez seems to be an internet representative. Her followers are not in her district. She has millions, like 6 million plus followers. So when she gives a forum on a live stream to her constituents, she's not talking to them. She's talking to people all over the country. That's where she gets her donations. She is a Twitter politician. I'm not convinced she's going to win. However, to be fair, come on. What is AOC supposed to do right now? Is she supposed to head back to the quarantine of New York City? I don't know if that necessarily makes sense either. I do think as a leader and representative, she should be there, working with the community, doing what she can to help. I also think there's a fair argument in that it actually makes some sense to have a representative, a lifeline for this community outside of the area and in DC who can advocate at the federal level, which she's supposed to be doing for them. So as much as I get the criticism, I don't know, man. I'm kind of like, do you want a congressperson to go to the hotspot, potentially get sick, and then bring that back to the rest of DC? Maybe it makes sense she's not there. But I do understand why people who live there would be upset, particularly Michelle Caruso Cabrera. This is about their district, how they feel about it, and that's how she feels about it. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are there who are thinking, why aren't you here to steer the ship? You're the captain, right? Why are you taking off? You should be here with us. We can see they got the number of deaths going up. Crowley, here's a quote. Crowley doesn't live here, send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water or breathe our air, and cannot possibly represent us, AOC said at the time. So look, and that's fair too. If AOC is going to slam Joe Crowley, who she beat, for the same thing she's kind of doing now, it's almost like how they criticize Trump, right? There's a subreddit called like a tweet for every Trump or something like that. I don't know what it is. But basically, people love digging up old Trump tweets to point out that the criticisms he had for Obama would apply to him today. Well, okay. The same is true for AOC. If she's going to slam that guy for, Crowley for all those reasons, then she's deserving of the same criticism. AOC's spokeswoman, Lauren Hitt, responded to the criticism saying the Congresswoman was in D.C. at the time because she had to travel there for the Senate relief bill vote. Hitt said, the Congresswoman traveled to D.C. last Tuesday afternoon once it was clear that a House vote on the Senate's relief bill was imminent. She arrived back in New York Thursday afternoon. During that time, the Congresswoman has remained actively engaged in all district business. If that's the case, then I think it's absolutely unfair to misrepresent what she was doing and why she was doing it. Because let's be honest, the media and the political establishment do the exact same thing to Trump. There was that thing like when the Soleimani raid happened or whatever, they claimed he was golfing and he wasn't. He was like, no. They claimed the Situation Room photo was probably fake or something because Trump was golfing. It's not true. Look, it makes sense why AOC would be in DC if she has to do a vote. Everybody needs to chill a little bit, I guess. The virtual forums were set up so that AOC could explain the COVID-19 relief bill to the community and answer any questions constituents had, she said. The Congresswoman has since returned to New York, where she has been active in the community's response to the crisis, her spokeswoman said. Quote, she also began a fundraising drive for local community groups, helping constituents weather COVID-19 in lieu of traditional end-of-the-quarter campaign fundraising. Since last Friday, she raised over $135,000 for 9 community groups, Hitt said. So, yeah, look, good on her. They say AOC has been very vocal in supporting New Yorkers who want to go on rent strike and has blasted New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo for only delaying evictions but not canceling rent payments. Cuomo passed an emergency order banning landlords from evicting tenants for 90 days. So what happens? People can't pay their rent because they're all out of work and then in 90 days they just get evicted? That makes no sense at all. There's one story going viral where a Brooklyn landlord waived rent for the month of April. Good on him, assuming he can afford it. I don't know how you solve this problem. We're facing serious economic strife. I understand the point that AOC is coming from. A lot of people, left and right, have pointed out. How are you going to freeze evictions but not rent because people can't pay their rent? And then, yeah, great, evictions are frozen and in 3 months they kick you out. But other people have been very critical of AOC. So I got one more point to bring up. This is Jimmy Dore. He had a similar kind of criticism for AOC, about being in luxury. He says you can't make this up. After voting for fleecing of America while bending the knee to Speaker Pelosi and while doing nothing to help you, AOC does a live stream complaining that politicians aren't doing anything while she's actually doing nothing but making a margarita. I got to give it to Jimmy Dore on this one. Jimmy's a good dude. He's a lefty. And progressives are pointing this out. Here's a tweet from Caleb Pohl. He says, AOC just wrapped up her Instagram live where she ranted about how elected officials aren't doing enough, all while she was making a margarita. Now, come on, guys, let's be fair. Just because she's at home making a margarita doesn't mean she's doing nothing, but I do think it's bad optics. I definitely think people have AOC derangement syndrome, and so I want to be careful here because as much as I'm annoyed with Trump derangement syndrome, AOC derangement syndrome is, there's a similarity to a certain degree. But I do think there's a big difference between Ocasio Cortez being very hypocritical, and she is, making tons of mistakes and gaffes and screwing things up, chasing Amazon out of New York and then gloating that they opened a marketing office. Not the same thing. People want to point to every little bad thing Trump does. AOC called out Facebook for and big tech for surveillance. Spot on, bravo. She was teaming. She had this brief team up with Ted Cruz about stopping lobbying. Right, had this pipeline of people getting in politics and then becoming lobbyists. She has done good things, and I agree with her on many things. Mostly not, though. I really do not the Green New Deal. I'm gonna see if I can do a better job of being critical of people like AOC when they do stuff like this that even Jimmy Dore can point out. It's like, come on, man. It's optics, professionalism. It's not the worst thing in the world, by no means. But I do think it's important to avoid the constant caricature of the other as this pure evil. So while I got to defer to Michelle Caruso Cabrera. She lives in this area. She's running to represent this. And if she doesn't like what AOC is doing with these, like, I'm in DC at a luxury apartment, then it's her right to criticize it. And it's not my place to say she's wrong. She lives there. I don't. And Jimmy Dore makes another good point about, look, AOC is constantly complaining about Pelosi, but she's going mainstream. That's been a huge criticism. So progressives are getting mad. I can understand why Jimmy Dore's upset. There was a recent story saying that AOC is no longer going to be going after Democrats with, progressive primaries necessarily. She's taking a conventional approach, targeting Republicans. She's fallen in line. People don't like that. She's trying to, seems like she might be trying to save herself because she knows that her time is almost up. Come November, she's going to get primaried or booted or something's going to happen. And she knows it. Every single politician is deserving of criticism, and I think it's fair to say that they're not all bad. Well, actually, I take that back. I think Schiff and Pelosi are really bad. Schumer is mostly bad. He's just out of it. Nadler's pretty bad. AOC, in my opinion, is actually a lot better than Schiff and Pelosi, for sure, but definitely deserving of criticism. I'll leave it there. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. I'll see y'all tomorrow at 10 a.m. on this channel. Adios.